Hi everyone, welcome to Hear Me Up Pitch, or welcome back if you're returning. I'm Tim.
And I'm Willem. Oh, and good afternoon, everybody. On a Saturday,
It's a Saturday.
Memorial Day weekend. We had a kind of crazy long week. I kept having stuff come up, so I had to cut off stuff. And Tim and his lovely wife had a wonderful day to celebrate this week, so we had to, make some time for it. So, yeah. So
Recording on a Saturday, and after this, he's gonna play Destiny.
He thinks that. And funny enough, though, somehow what we're talking about today, to my chagrin, does tie in with Destiny.
Somewhat.
It pisses me off.
It took 10 years between
Yeah.
its failure and the thing.
But today we are doing something that I've been putting off for a while, but we are getting to one of you guys who had me and Tim do not know who this is. This is not a personal friend, and it might, if you do know me personally, let me know, because your username absolutely
user -PO8RI5PQ9G.
This is all dedicated to them. We're just gonna call him User Porg.
User Porg.
I don't know, or PO8. I don't know. I'll just call him PO8. That sounds like I'm calling him a piece of something. So, I don't know. What should we call it? We'll just call him the user. I don't know. But yeah, no. But this person on YouTube has been commenting for the past 6 months. 6 months, and thank you. Always replying, always doing stuff, and I've always been like, this is crazy. We have a consistent follower who is not. Again, though, if I do know you and you haven't come forward and told me, I appreciate it.
Or if it's me that you know,
yeah.
Either way,
I'm just so. If not, you're a homie, and you're technically the first real fan we got. So I'm so we're dedicating this episode to you.
Yeah.
So and we're gonna tackle first, though, before we get into the big scenario that you gave us 6 months ago. We're
gonna tackle a question.
We're gonna tackle a question you gave us. So. Yeah. And Tim got all these saved up on his phone, so I don't have to sit here and be like...
Well, the question that was asked, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have that comment pulled up.
Boo.
You asked, what franchise would we want to take over, and what franchise would we want to never touch with a 39.5-foot pole?
And even if they tried to pay us good money.
Yeah.
So, Tim, so let's start off with franchises we'd love to take over.
I want to go the other route.
You want to? Oh.
All right. The franchise I would never touch with a 39.5-foot pole is Fast and Furious. I would never... I watched the first 5, and I never enjoyed them. I watched them with friends, and that's what they wanted to watch. And I've never been a big car person, and some of the stunts that are pulled in the movie are just they're not real. They would never actually happen. The cars, it feels like a waste of money blowing up that many cool cars, and I could never really get into the story. It's become a meme, right, with Dom Toretto and family.
It's all about family.
And I'd never touch it because I think it's hot garbage, and I don't want to. Sorry to step on any toes.
Garbage.
If you liked those movies, good for you. I hated them, so
everyone has their opinions.
I'd never touch them. What about you?
Mission Impossible. Never seen them. Never cared for them. I love how we both went to the biggest franchises. Mm-hmm. Okay, then maybe before we talk about more of the franchises, what is one that you wouldn't touch because you love it so much?
The Lord of the Rings.
All right, there you go.
That's an easy one. The Lord of the Rings. I love Middle Earth, and I think that all of the new stuff they're doing with Rings of Power, I haven't seen them, so I can't accurately say, but talking to people that have seen them, I'm not impressed with what they're doing with it. And if they ever decide to remake The Lord of the Rings, I will be the first to sign the petition to say no.
Okay.
Because, I mean, Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn is all you need. You don't need any more. I am happy that we're getting The Hunt for Gollum with the original cast. It makes me really, really happy.
How is that going to work?
I don't know. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see.
Is Gollum supposed to be still alive somehow? Like, what
I
is
think it's
a prequel?
It's set before the movies, I think.
I don't know.
I could be wrong.
I'm a little...
Let me double check.
I'm sick of the nostalgia train. I want... Well, that's why we are kind of on this. We're sick of pointing out the nostalgia train. Me and Tim, before this episode, had a big old discussion about the newest Lilo and Stitch movie, and even watched a YouTube video about it, and it convinced me not to go. I don't want to touch it. So...
The Hunt for Gollum will take place between Bilbo's birthday party and the Mines of Moria.
Okay. All right. We'll see. I don't know. I would like to, maybe if honestly, I would have minded if they'd done it animated, so that we could just do voices and it wouldn't have to be such a big strain on the actors, because many of them are
they all look good.
They do, but they're not. I don't know. I don't know. And I should say that while we I took this question as what are like franchises that if people suggested them to us for this podcast, we'd be like, I don't want to talk about it. I feel like that's kind of where we went, right? Okay. Because those two, I don't, and I agree with you both. I'm like, I'm good. There's not much to talk about. It's like objective.
The Mission Impossible theme song is pretty cool.
Yeah. Tom Cruise is a pretty good actor. No, he is amazing. I loved him. Yeah. I loved him in Maverick.
I never really cared to watch those movies. And the Fast and Furious movies, I did not care for.
And I don't want to try to start going down a rabbit hole of watching those for this podcast, because we would just have to start doing that.
We'd have to do Babylon AD all over again, and I don't want to.
Okay.
We talked about it earlier, actually. We had lunch today, and...
He's like, should we do an old episode? And I just stared at him, and my eyes started lighting up, and first thing out of his mouth,
I'm not watching Babylon AD again. It's not happening.
Exactly what I was thinking. So, I'm
sorry, I can't do it.
I want to tackle it again. I want to find the book. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that okay, so Lord of the Rings for you, of one that you would love to
leave alone because it's so good.
Yes. You leave alone.
I can't say that I wouldn't take it though, because it's Lord of the Rings. I'd love to be a part of things.
Is there a story in Lord of the Rings that we haven't talked about yet?
The Silmarillion, like all of it.
Is there a part? I don't know anything about it. So
the Silmarillion is the Bible of...
So, but is there a story in there that you would like this?
There's a handful. Yeah, there's a handful. There's a giant dragon. I think that would be a really cool story.
I know it's not canon, but Shadow of Mordor.
Oh, so good.
I would want. I could do an HBO Max Game of Thrones show of that. I could watch that. I would kind of change things for Shadow of War. That game was a little weird, but I think the potential of Talion becoming one of the Nazgul in the end, and spoiler, sorry, but the game's been out for over 10 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
And freaking Warner Brothers Bethesda, Behemoth? No, Monolith. They crashed, and so they copyrighted a system that we're never going to see in video games ever again. Whatever. Anyway, for me though, one that I love that I would never want to touch. Oh man, that's a good question. Franchise. That's a hard question. I don't think I really have like a franchise that I wouldn't mind diving into more. Like, honestly, no.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Potter. I would not. I don't want to see a remake.
No, the movies we got were good.
They were different in their own right, but
they're not. I don't want to get burned at the stake, so I have to amend my statement somewhat. The books, the difference between the books and the movies is incredible, and the fact that they changed so much from the books in the movies, I know it puts a lot of people off, but I still think both the books and the movies are just really, really good. And the original cast of Harry Potter, perfectly cast.
Okay, Tim.
You can't replace Alan Rickman.
I'm totally tangenting out and going sideswiping here. I have another way to see this question. A franchise that has not been touched, like to do motion picture that you're like, I would never want to do, even if they approached me and said, hey man, we're giving you a shot to write a story for this. Strawberry Shortcake. I would not want to try to head up to be the head of a story for Strawberry Shortcake. I wouldn't have like Care Bears, anything. Like, I'd be like, I don't know what to do. The Care Bear stare's about to come out with the crowbar and just get some. I don't know. It's like with like the Harold and the Purple Crayon. They did that, and I was like, that is so dumb. But I will tell you, if I could,
what? Back up.
Harold and the Purple Crayon. A movie came out with Zachary Levi.
What is that?
Harold and the Purple Crayon?
I've never heard of that.
This is where our age gap is really different.
I'm sorry if I hurt someone's feelings.
No, it's fine. Harold and the Purple Crayon is a storybook about this little boy Harold, and he's got his magic purple crayon, and he just draws and stuff comes to life.
Harold.
What did I say?
Sorry.
They think I said Harry.
What you said in my head was Herald, as in like
a herald.
Yeah,
Herald of the Purple Crayon Kingdom.
I was so confused.
Welcome to the Purple Crayon Kingdom. We stay clear. We are a mix of the green, and that is not what makes purple. Red and Blue. I know what Red and Blue is, and Red and Blue is one of the best shows on YouTube, but we're not here to talk about that.
Red versus Blue?
Red versus Blue, yeah.
Ethan, that's for you.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, stuff like that. Just weird things where it's like, oh, we're going to just come up with a little kid like the Smurfs. I am so sick.
Smurfs is one that I wouldn't take just because it's...
But they're still doing it. It's like, why are you doing this?
The original show, the original TV show, the animated, where you could watch the series and all of the different episodes, was awesome.
No,
that's what I grew up watching. That and Gummy Bears.
Really?
Yeah.
But you don't. That's fine. I like with like a great example, and I know we're going off on kind of a tangent, but the Peanuts movie. I feel like that was such a cute movie. I finally watched that after coming home, after being out of the country for so long. And I watched that movie, and I was like, this is one of my favorite movies. I watched that movie on days where I'm like, I need a pick-me-up, and I think it's so cute. And it was animated. It wasn't like, if they tried to say, we're going to do a Peanuts live-action movie, I'd be like,
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
But if you told me, and if I got special permission from Mr. Watterson himself, I would love to do this is to answer your question fully. A movie that I would love to do animated 2D. I would love to do a Calvin and Hobbes movie.
I was thinking the same thing, or a show even.
Mm-hmm. I would love
animated,
to head that.
Yeah. That was the one that was in my head.
I would do stories of Spaceman Spiff. I would go off, and I think it would be so much fun. But
I can imagine Spaceman Spiff being the equivalent of the in universe movie about Chicken Little at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It'd be something like
Yeah,
that.
no, yeah, it's exactly what it is.
That's what I imagine it would be.
And I was more thinking that if Bill Watterson would let me, I would do Calvin as a father and introducing. And I've seen comics of him introducing his kids.
Too.
Yeah. So I know
think,
that's never going to happen unless Bill Water. And I hope that'll be a slippery slope if Mr. Watterson ever gives that away. But I would absolutely love that.
I think it would be fun, but.
Or
they're too good as comics already.
And the thing is, I don't even think we need to try to make him. I don't want to modernize. I would just make him a young boy in the late 80s, early 90s, because that's what he was.
The way he was,
and it's just perfect. I think it would be a fun show. It's like in like I said, the Peanuts movie. It's very simple. They kept it the time period, but yet it doesn't feel like it's 60s or something. It's just the Charlie Brown world. Very simple, and I would love it. So
yeah, I think that's. I'm going off on another tangent here for a second.
Wow, just kidding.
I think that's an issue with a lot of these movies that are modernizing, doing the live action remakes and stuff, and remaking old shows. Is they're trying to take something, a story that existed in a certain time period because it made sense in that time period, and now they're modernizing it. At Lilo and Stitch. We had a really big conversation about it earlier today, and we watched a video, and
I still would want to talk about, because I think long story short,
my point is, I think if we're gonna remake movies or shows or bring stuff from the past to today, leave it in the time period it was set in, because that's where it made sense. And if you try to modernize it, you're going to make a lot of people mad.
I think you're right. And it's...
Anyway.
Moving on from
that side tangent.
I thought we thank you for that question, and hope that answers your question. For me, I think that was a fun little... That was a fun little couple minutes to talk about. Thought that was good. So thank you for that. But...
I got to answer mine.
Oh.
Star Wars is mine.
Oh, well,
I would love to take over Star Wars.
Well, we know that. You've already... Shoot, I would like to help with
I don't want Kathleen Kennedy in charge. I want to be in charge.
Anyone's seen the South Park skits with Kathleen Kennedy?
Yep.
That's all I think about every time I hear that woman's name.
Yep.
So, but we're going to leave it there. So,
anyway, moving on.
But for the user, thank you for that question.
Yes.
But now it's time to move on to your...
Other question.
Your bigger...
This one I do have pulled up.
Oh.
All right. To direct quote, lovely viewer. Here's one. The Killzone franchise are some great video games that started out great and then petered out into mediocre or bad depending on who you ask. I won't say too much if you haven't played, but ironically it gives the villains a little bit of a relatable motivation for some of the things they did.
So, I've played a little bit of the last Killzone game.
I didn't know it existed until today. I'm sorry.
And I told Tim it was simply PlayStation's answer to Halo. It was them trying to make this be a big competition. It came out in 2004.
The Halo killer.
Yeah, and it didn't perform well, and it makes me feel really old because we brought up 2004, and I was like, oh, wow, I was in 4th grade. And Tim goes, I don't remember 2004.
2004 was between two of the best Legend of Zelda games, The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess.
Fabulous. Weird.
I remember when Twilight Princess came out.
I remember when Ocarina of Time came out. Wait. Yes. Barely. Anyway, that's beside the point.
Speaking of The Legend of Zelda.
We're gonna get sued!
Speaking of The Legend of Zelda.
Anyway, but with the Killzone, we did some homework, and I watched a bunch of videos, tried to kind of learn more about it, and I think the premise was awesome. I think what really killed it is kind of what many people said. It was trying to go, and I'm just going to say this at the beginning before we really go into the story. I think it died mainly because Sony is more of at this time was more of a single player game, and this game was really trying to push multiplayer onto us. But for all of us who play on PlayStation, we're not really big.
Sony is known for their single player epics.
Yeah, it's really hard.
You've got a lot of them. Uncharted is probably my favorite PlayStation exclusive series.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
So good. Horizon Zero Dawn was a great game. There's the Spider-Man games. God of War.
Love him. Ghost of
Tsushima.
I would say even Returnal, the newest one for the PS5, which is basically the PlayStation's answer to Metroid Prime. Love it. There's just so many, and for me, I am more personally, I like to sit alone, play my story games, and have fun. I'm not that big. He's staring at me, isn't he? I'm not playing Destiny.
He's gonna play Destiny.
No,
it's gonna be today.
It's happening. I'm fine.
We've got 4 hours before that party. We've got time.
I'll be fine. I'll live. I'll be okay. I am blinking. I'm going here against my will.
I know. I do know. PlayStation has a handful of multiplayer games. For example, Helldivers.
Yeah, and that's but it petered out real fast. It's just
$90 to play a game that.
Hold on. It was $40 when it first came out. It really wasn't that bad. I had fun for 3 weeks, and honestly, $40 for 3 weeks of like constant playing, I'm fine with that. I feel like I got my money's worth. But then after a while, I was like, all right, I'm kind of done. Yeah. But I don't think Sony's done a good job with exclusive online video games, because it's not what I don't think that's their strong suit. I think that because if you think of for anyone who has played PlayStation, you're like, well, what about Titanfall? That was for more than one type of system. What about Destiny? More than one type of system.
Destiny is all of them. Yeah. Titanfall was all of them. I agree. And there's obviously there's a lot of here's the big difference between, in my opinion, between PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. PlayStation has a lot of great exclusive single player games. Xbox has a lot of really good cross-platform and internet play multiplayer games. And then Nintendo has all of the really fun family-friendly adventure games that you get, like Mario and Zelda, the very classics. And it's not a bad thing for each to have their own thing. I think what PlayStation and Xbox are doing with Steam, where they are both going to accept the Steam app onto their systems and allow people to play their exclusives on either console, is a fantastic idea. I love the idea that I could play Uncharted on my Xbox through Steam. I love the idea that you could play any of the Xbox games on your PlayStation through the Xbox Game Pass. That's great. But leaving it as sharing as opposed to taking over the other systems. I feel like I can't believe we're having exclusive I don't think I'd ever would have thought of we're going to talk about video game exclusives on our podcast before, but I think my take is I do not mind if you come out with a game and then 6 months later you say, all right, fine, the rest of you can enjoy it now. And that's what's kind of been happening with Steam. Give them 6 months. But
if it's your exclusive, you get first.
Yes.
Try.
Exactly.
Gears of War is getting a remastered straight from the ground coming out this summer.
I think that's awesome.
And it's just for PlayStation. I am probably going to be hopping on that because I have good memories with the Gears of War franchise. But we're not here to talk about exclusives and all that fun stuff. And I think that
here's the bottom line. From what I understand, because again, I didn't know that it existed until today. But I think the bottom line is, at least back then, Sony and PlayStation, their whole thing was the single-player story-driven games like Uncharted, where it's just you, and sure, you can have the multiplayer, PvP thing. I love shooting my brothers in the Uncharted PvP thing. It's a lot of fun. But I played those games for the story, not for the online multiplayer aspect.
I just downloaded it. I re-downloaded it recently because I want to play the fourth one again, because that one is awesome.
Yeah.
So
I only played the first 3. I didn't have access to 4 and 5. I'm sorry.
Oof. I haven't played the 5th one.
But number 3 is my favorite.
So good. So good.
But yeah, anyway, back then that was their strong suit. I think it still is. And when they attempted the online multiplayer thing and they focused more on the online compatibility as opposed to focusing on the story falls flat. And that's we've seen that with some other things. I'm going to talk about Destiny for a second here. That's I kind of feel like that's what we've gotten with a couple of our expansions recently. A couple of our more recent episodes, we got some decent content, but they were a lot less story driven and a lot more focused on kind of the gameplay and the mechanics and stuff, while they worked on something bigger. And I think that was a good thing, right? We got three episodes recently. For those of you who play Destiny, we got episode Echoes, then we got episode Revenant, and then episode Heresy. Episode Echoes was a lot of fun. That's where I started playing Destiny. And it was a ton of fun. I enjoyed it. It was a really good way for me to kind of get into the game and understand what's going on, and start learning. But it was a lot less content focused because they were working on the next 2 episodes while they were working on episode Echoes. And then episode Revenant came out, and that was more of your vampire slayer. It was a really fun episode. That one was probably the worst of the 3, but it was still a lot of fun. And it was a lot more focused on these are some of the activities you can do. We're going to give you little bits of filler story that you can go in. You're going to have to do this activity like 12 times just to continue the story, and that kind of sucked. But while you're doing that, we're going to finish up number 3, which is Heresy, which is a lot more. It's a big throwback to Destiny 1. Like the 7 years ago is when stuff in this part was happening. And we got a big throwback to that, and it was very nostalgic for a lot of people. And we got to visit some locations that we hadn't visited since Destiny 1 7 years ago. And then we also got a fantastic story, because that's what they were building up to. And Heresy is what is kickstarting us into the next long stretch of Destiny, the next saga. And I think that's kind of what Destiny's doing right. Whereas with, what is it, Killshot? No, that was the movie we did. Killzone. From what I understood from the video, they didn't really build up the multiplayer thing. They focused more on the activities and how you could interact with other people, and they left the story in the dust. And that's kind of how I feel about episode Revenant, is they just kind of left the story in the dust. Like, we got to see a few characters, and there was some good payoff with a couple of the characters, but it took us 3 months to do it, and I was kind of bored for a lot of that. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents. It's look it up for Destiny.
He's
more so
than
it
sell me out.
did for Killzone. I'm trying to convince him, guys. He said, "Oh, wait, if I get it, I can play with you guys, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, that actually sounds kind of fun."
It does.
And then he turned around and walked away, and I'm like, "Okay,
it's right there.
It's right there.
We're seeing the PlayStation. It's right there. You can see it.
I'm right here. I can help walk you through the tutorial."
And I can just sit here and just be like, just set it up on my phone. It's crazy.
Do it.
And I know that bringing everything back.
Anyway,
I think some people might go, "I can't believe you guys are talking about exclusives and video games." I think a point we're trying to make, though, is the whole point of this podcast of that. Where is our storytelling? Mm-hmm. And Destiny apparently does a pretty good job. And
they have a fantastic narrative team.
Yeah.
They have an awesome narrative team. There are things in that game that, like...
Does it get boring, though, sometimes? Repetitive?
Sometimes, but at that point, that's when you dive into the lore and you understand what is the world. And there's so much content. I've been playing for just about a year now, and there's still stuff that I haven't done yet.
Would you say this is one of your favorite games?
Oh, absolutely. If The Legend of Zelda didn't exist, Destiny would be my top game.
You need to make a Destiny Legend of Zelda, like a Destiny symbol using the Triforce. Like that. Like
I think it's doable.
Yeah. I think that'd be pretty cool. Anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a fun tangent to go on. I think that was a good conversation that we usually talk about movies, but I think that many of us have wonderful memories with playing video games. Tim is an example.
Well, and the Legend of Zelda is another good example. Like the stories in those games are amazing.
But they got so, and I'm not crapping on them, but there was a point where we all knew what was going to happen. We were going to have something happen to a family member or Zelda. We're going to go to 3 castles, and then something's going to happen. Mm-hmm. 3 more castles, little small interaction, something important, big interaction, game over. Like,
yeah. Well, and it was what it was, and it was awesome. And the way that they did it,
that's why every Link looked different, felt different,
different. The world was different. The mechanics were different. The weapons were different.
And you looked for Easter eggs.
Exactly. That's one of my favorite things about the Legend of Zelda series is in each game, you can look for things that tie them into previous games. Ocarina of Time is literally a link to the past, just 3D.
Twilight Princess
has so many nods.
You see the little boy, the boy from Majora's Mask.
Yeah, the Skull Kid.
The
Wind Waker. You see the Zora. They're extinct now, kind of. They evolved into the Rito, but you see,
and that's where it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
What do you want? Oh, we are getting
okay.
Ooh,
we'll have that for another.
I do want to do that. I do
episode.
Want to do a Legend of Zelda episode someday. I want to talk about like when does a franchise let go? When does it end? Because it's like that franchise is older than me, and that's saying something. I'm just kidding. I'm not that old. I'm 30.
You're not 30 yet. You got a few months.
I have less than 60 days. I have less than 50 days.
Ouch.
I
have 5.5 years.
Quiet. And you get to be a dad before then. Good for you. Good for you. So, all right. That was a good first half an hour of answering users' question. And it's going to stink. 'Cause what if we have another user someday?
If you guys have questions, we will take those questions and we will write them down and we will find answers for them and we will put them into a video. Whether it's a YouTube short or it's a full-length video like today, where we answer the questions and then we go on these massive tangents trying to convince Willem to play Destiny.
He's gonna do it.
We'll do it.
We'll do it.
You just need to comment. Make comments. Give us ideas of stories that we can tackle and talk about. And we're kind of starting to get away from movies, and if there are video games or books or
stories.
TV
We
shows,
just want to know about stories.
yeah, tell us. Give us ideas.
I believe that
stories that you want us to talk about.
I'm scared that storytelling is a skill that we are losing collectively. I really do. And the more we've done this podcast, the more I've thought about it. And I feel like there's some creativity. I definitely am thankful for, I know this is one last little tangent. I'm so grateful for Book Talk I know that probably makes you laugh, but like all the more adult fiction, I'm glad that kind of did a resurgence because of how much books are being bought again, how many people are going, and it's like encouraging people to go and see more stories, like, and it's just been a big thing. So it's kind of funny that helped it out, but I think storytelling is storytelling, and if you pique people's interest by fun stories that play to their interest, that's what we want. And some of those stories, I will admit, they're pretty good. Leave it at that.
Some of our stories,
yeah,
that we've created,
pretty
good.
I would like to think so. I really do.
To pat my own back or anything.
Not to do a selfish plug, but the thing is, Tim,
we've put a lot of effort into our stories.
But Tim, so far they're just skeletons right now. We gotta,
and we'll get there.
We definitely want to start really getting.
The purpose of our podcast is for the pitch.
That's true.
Not for the meat.
Okay. You're right. You're right.
We will give you guys.
You will get meals.
Meat is back on the menu.
Meat is.
It's just got to take some time.
It's got to take some time.
We got to let it cook.
We're definitely let him cook now. So, Killzone. Kind of went through and wanted to go more about it with the story, as we've talked about, and I will say the idea of what we've seen, because again, I didn't play a lot, but what me and Tim got to see was a story that was really had a lot of lore and potential, like that could have probably become as big as the Halo, the Rings, and I don't know much about Destiny, but with Destiny, like this was absolutely insane. The idea of that humans branch off into two separate races, essentially, and the one that what was it, the Harkonnen? I hope I don't say that right. Let me see. I have it written down somewhere. Hold on. Helghast. Sorry. What the heck is a Harkonnen? Anyway, the mutated humans, the Helghast, they think they're better. They're far superior, and they're surprisingly very British. I thought that was really funny. Even when I played the last game, I was like, what the? Why are they all white? Like, it was the stereotypical, like, they are British. It just made me chuckle.
Well, I mean, you think about it this way. We split off of Great Britain, and we sound way different. Like, we just talk different. And it's what happens when
it's what happens.
When people that speak the same language don't talk to each other as often anymore.
So the one I've played was Shadowfall, and I think Shadowfall was the weirdest one. Let's see if I give a good summary here. And it was like,
the video said it was the one that killed it.
Yeah, it was a cold, like, I saw someone summarize it the best as we had a World War II, like, we had these epic World War II things, and they were great, and it ended with the planet of Helghast being destroyed. But then they decided that, we're going to go with Cold War setup, and now the planet that the humans are on, Vetka, is divided by the regular humans and the Helghast refugees, and they gave them half the planet. And it just seemed weird to me, because when I first started the game, I was like, wait, so you blew up the planet, but you let them come live on your planet and take up half? I could get maybe like... But like, apparently, and someone said it best in a comment or in a video, and they said, this is like if we beat Germany and gave them all Scotland. Like, it was like, here you go. Like, we beat Nazi Germany, but we put all the Nazis in Scotland, so there you go. And then they kicked all of the Scots out, or worse. I was like, that's just weird. So I think the basis of it is that we've seen many stories of war, and I think this was a big take on war, and I know that we're all sick of wars, whether it be the news or throughout our histories, but I thought it was just I feel like they had a lot going for it, and they probably could have wrapped it up better with a better bow. I think, honestly, if it were me, I think the destruction of Helghast would have been the end. I think that trying to make this Cold War setup happen and then slowly show the humans who have let Helghast come in and slowly become even worse than the Helghast and try to eliminate them, even though they let them come onto their planet. It got messy. And I get it. We as humans, whether we are mutated from years of living in the coal mines or whatever they were, I feel like we always have potential for good and potential for bad. And I feel like no matter whose side you're on, there are good and bad. And so it was just a messy premise to begin with, in my opinion. I don't know how much to do with it because it just makes it different. Because when you really dive in, and I feel like this is how it is with Andor and modern day Star Wars, is many people try to dive into the bad guy side and try to humanize them to some degree. And I kind of miss when it was just, here's a villain, they're bad, and there's nothing to do about it. That's why I think most of our villains growing up were heartless aliens and robots. It just made it easy. So, I don't know. I don't mind humanizing, but I think about Burning Skies story that we were doing. Like, how easy would it be for people to try to feel pity for the race that you were coming up with? Like, that's the hard thing. It's like, I'm so glad there are so many people with bleeding hearts out there as someone who is, but when does the bleeding heart ruin the storytelling and you just can't just go, here's good, here's bad? Like,
yeah. And I understand, like, obviously good and evil, it's not black and white. Like, there's a lot of gray between.
So much.
But at the same time, sometimes there is a very clear white and black, right? You look at Star Wars, for example. Obviously, like, there's the light side and the dark side. It's very clear cut, and that doesn't detract from the storytelling. If it was, there's the light side, then there's the light gray, then the medium gray, and the dark gray.
Well, the
and
dark side of the Force was really just the two Sith, and then there's everyone else surrounding them, and not everyone was. I think there are people who have made choices, and they are purely to the point of where there's no redemption, and they are at the moment of the darkest end of the spectrum, Emperor Palpatine. But even Luke, he wasn't the pillar of perfect, shining purity and white. He had flaws. He made mistakes. Like,
that's why he was such a good main character.
What? But honestly, though, that's why some villains. But that's why Sidious, to me, really was never that interesting. I never cared, and I was so shocked they brought him back. I never cared for him. He was just a looming figure. The main person we all focus on in Star Wars
was Darth Vader.
Is Darth Vader. I'm sorry. He's the face of Star Wars.
He is. You see that helmet, you know exactly who that is.
You say Star Wars, the first name pops in my mind is Darth Vader. Second one, Anakin Skywalker. And guess what? They're the same darn person. I almost said it. I almost did. But I think that's the iffy thing with it. So, Tim, as someone who loves Star Wars and who loves Halo, loves Destiny, I don't know what could have been done differently. Would have been better to have made them would it take place much farther and apart? I
don't really care how far apart it was. What I care about is how much effort did the narrative team put into the story versus, you know, how much money went into the narrative team and how much money went into the physics engine and the mechanics and the multiplayer server side of the game.
Well, yeah,
because that's the issue. Is if you don't have a good narrative team, the game is not going to be very, very good. The mechanics of the game might be really, really fun, might be very entertaining. Take Splitgate, for example, coming up with the portals. That seems, or is it not Splitgate?
Split Fiction?
No. There's a PvP game where you've got, it's basically Portal but PvP.
Oh,
with guns.
Oh,
and so you can portal behind people and do all that. That sounds phenomenal. Just the gameplay itself, the mechanics of the game, and the way that you can strategize with your portals and stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that is Splitgate.
I will look it up.
It seems great. Like, it sounds awesome. So much fun. But if they decide to just keep it a purely PvP game, great. It's a purely PvP game. But as soon as you throw in some story into the game, if the story falls flat, the physics of the game are not going to carry it forward. Right. And I think, going back to Destiny, we've had a few expansions. Lightfall was probably the one that people hated the most recently, because the story felt a little bit flat, and it didn't really. I mean, we defeated one of our biggest enemies, and we had some really cool stuff, but it wasn't as good as some of the other expansions we've gotten in the past, but the narrative team cooked with the lore, right? And that's another thing that kind of helps keep Destiny afloat, is the lore. They have every weapon in the game, not every weapon, most weapons in the game have their own lore tab. So you inspect the weapon, and you can, for controller, you press, what is it, left trigger, and it'll pull up a whole tab, and it's like anywhere between 8 to 20 paragraphs of lore that you can read, and it gives you some insight into why things are the way they are. And with Lightfall, there were a few things that I didn't quite understand why things were working the way they did, what was going on, but reading those lore tabs, like, I was able to understand, oh, that makes sense now, right? And it's hard when a game has to rely on that,
for it to be like, for you to go, oh, I get the story now,
right? But if you don't have that, right, the game falls flat. If you don't have that extra lore on the side to keep the story interesting, the game falls flat. And I have a feeling that's probably kind of what happened with Killzone, is the story just wasn't as engaging as before, and it kind of sounds like the lore just fell flat, and it was kind of a repeat of what has happened before.
Yeah, and from what I've been reading and kind of looking up, is that many people just didn't have a connection, because you never were the same character. You honestly felt like the bad guy at some point, because according the ISA, the good guys, and I forget what the ISA meant. Hold on a second. Interplanetary Strategic Alliance, Earth-based government. They did more atrocities to the Hellgas, really. They would like blow up stuff, and of course they nuked the entire planet. And it's like, I think if what I would have done to be fun is set up the first couple games playing as IFP. Was it IFP?
IFS.
ISA. And you make it, the narrative is that the Helghast are these fascists. They are coming up to try to, they are better, they are superior. And of course there are probably some that do think that, but they've been living in mines. And I'm sorry to say, in most of our history as human beings, miners are never the ones who are, the better ones. They're the ones who've been pushed down into the mines. You stay down there and you are working class. I would make it.
I know. I see exactly where you're going.
I would make it by the third game. You realize that the Helghast, the history has been wrong, and the Helghast were the ones who were tricked. They've been in the mines. For any of my Red Rising fans, you know where I'm going with this. I would have it that they would rise up. And of course, I think the line would be for each game, I would have 2 different protagonists. First couple games, you're trying to stop the corruption of what is in the ISA, and you figure it out. And I mean, by the second game, you figure out, oh my gosh, we're the bad guys, or at least we are not any better. And then next couple games would be on the Helghast side, and you're trying to rise up. I would start from a lonely miner, working all the way up and trying to take off anyone. And there probably would be some crazy zealot leaders. I would try to work the way up to take them out. And the last game would be you playing as these 2, slowly getting ready to meet in the middle. And then I would honestly have the fun thing of in the last game, you get to pick which one you play as. So something like that. I think that it would be this interesting thing of why do things happen? Why were they shoved into a mining community? Like what caused all this? And I know they probably explained this more, and I know we are not doing your suggestion justice, Mr. User. But for the most part, it just seems that Killzone really struggled to know what it wanted, and it really tried to compete with, here's a fun summary of from someone online, and I really liked it. It said, Killzone wanted to be the Call of Duty of space war with narrative depth of Halo, but it lacked a clear narrative voice. Despite its ambitious world building and themes, it failed to create characters, stakes, or stories players cared about. In the end, the franchise was defined more by usual spectacle than meaningful storytelling. And I think that if you could just change the idea of trying to build connection with both sides, because I think one of the best movies of Division I've ever seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but Civil War was nuts. I really wasn't here for it when it first came out, but that was during an election year, and it played beautifully into election time, and it was kind of like, What side were you on, Tim? What side were you on?
I don't like politics, so
even if it's Captain America and Iron Man.
Honestly, low-key kind of in the middle.
Okay.
Low-key.
Okay. Get out.
Yeah. No, I was kind of in the middle. Like, I understand where both sides are coming from.
And it was weird though, because if you met someone, and that's kind of where I was too, because it's like, but Iron Man had points that I was like, it
made sense. Like having some checks on the most powerful group of people in the world is a smart thing. It's a good idea. I can't just be running around being vigilantes all over the world with no checks. But at the same time, if
being
they have
told
to go,
that you can't go save somebody,
exactly.
And that was what I would have wanted from Killzone. I would have want to see both sides of things, and that's what I think. And I'm sorry for rubbing my nose. It is that time of year where you're just dry.
I've had really bad allergies this week.
I think that's what they were trying to do with Last of Us 2, and I personally liked it. I like seeing both sides, even though by the end, but no one won. I didn't feel good at the end of that video game, and that's probably the point, because no one wins in a zombie apocalypse.
I think that is the point.
Nobody wins in a zombie apocalypse, and humans can lash out. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of the take I would have ended with Killzone. I think I really would have tried to, I think I would have hoped that the two planets could coexist in the end. But I don't know. I think it would be a difficult one. I think most likely both planets would bear terrible scars. I don't think the Helghast planet would live much longer if it was that terrible for humans. But I think this lore sounded amazing, and it stinks that it wasn't executed properly. But that's what you get when you have a lot of expectation and you're competing a lot and you just make frantic decisions. So, But all in all, that was fun to talk about.
Yeah, that was a fun series of tangents.
That was. It was tangents.
Mostly me trying to convince Willem to play Destiny, but gonna happen.
I thought that was fun, and I hope that those answered your questions. And this was kind of a fun episode for you, Mr. User. We gotta say his name. We gotta say his user tag properly one more time. Let's see who wins. Probably gonna be Tim. And I will put it better in description. You're definitely getting tagged when the video comes out. But
user PO8RI5PQ9G.
Thank you.
Whoever that is, leave your name in the comments so we know who you are.
Or don't.
Or don't.
You can
DM us.
You are
That would
more
be
than
better.
welcome to not
Or stay anonymous.
We do not care. But thank you. And thank you for constantly listening to us.
Yeah.
And I think, all in all,
That was a fun conversation.
I think I'm satisfied with my care.
Same.
Anything to say before I close us out?
Well, as usual, just love each other, be kind, and remember, storytelling is more about the story and less about what you want from it.
I like that. And hopefully very soon you are going to get more stories from us. You will get more of meat than just the bare bones. And until then, we will see you later, pitches.
Goodbye.
Bye.